Hello and welcome to Starting Your Career as a Mechanical Engineer. My name is Michael Gallagher and I'm here from Engineers Ireland. I'm delighted to be today's host. So on the topic of today's webinar, look, if you're one of our graduates and you're joining today to learn about what it's like starting your career as a mechanical engineer, just a reminder that you can log CPD for the efforts involved in watching this, or indeed doing some independent research, and you can claim up to an hour for this activity. If you're a student member and you're tuning in today to learn about becoming a mechanical engineer once you finish, just remember to take advantage of the free student membership that's up for offer while you're still a student. You can do that just by logging onto our website or using the link below. For those who are graduating, you can get your free graduate membership, and there's a €700 discount on offer for the first 4 years of your career for our graduates. And if you have any questions, you can email membership@engineersireland.ie. So without further ado, let's hand it over to our fantastic speaker. Today we have Lee Gibbons, who is a mechanical engineer for the ESB. Lee's role varies from innovation technologies to power station maintenance. Lee is a DIT and TU Dublin graduate with both a technical degree and bachelor degree. He has several published academic papers and has won several national and international case competitions, particularly in CAD and design work. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Lee.
Hi, my name is Lee Gibbons. I'm a mechanical engineer for ESB, and I'm talking to you today about starting your career. So a background on myself, I have a Bachelor's of Engineering Technology in Mechanical Engineering. That's a 3-year level 7 degree that I got from DIT. And then I also have a Bachelor's of Engineering in Mechanical Engineering, which is your traditional kind of 4-year degree. For me, it was a 2-year add-on because I didn't have honours maths. But one of the differentiating factors between a technician and an engineer in terms of these courses is a technician can run the tools. For comparison, we have about 20 to 30 hours of labs per week, where in your traditional engineering degree, we had, I think, somewhere around 6 in our final year. And our, big difference between the two, it gives you an idea of kind of the skill sets I have, and where my background is and where I came from. So one of the things I have is I have 4 publications in high impact journals. As you can see, they're mostly about Irish data centers and how they operate and run, and also the economics of it. So one of the things is data centers in Ireland consume about 30% of our electricity. So it's a big problem that's growing, and a very consistent flat rate creates a lot of problems. So it's an issue I'm currently tackling on the side as a part of my hobby. So engineering up until what I recently did on my papers was a solo sport, but I realized it's a team sport. And one of the things that really solidified this was when we won Essential Solves. So TU Dublin at the time, or as it was called DIT, before the team of 4 men they see in this photo here. It's myself and William Tunstetter, 2 in the middle. We're both mechanical engineers, and on the far edges is Brian King and Cathal Cairns, who are both accountants, all in DIT and TU Dublin. And you also have the CEO of ESB in the middle and the Minister for Higher Education as well. We went forward for all these different competitions, and the main one was the ESB one, where you walk into a room, you're given 8 hours to solve a problem that the company currently has, and you have to go and pitch it to executives and basically make your case for why it's good or why it's not good. And most of the time you want it to be good. So one of the things that really solidifies kind of confidence in yourself as an engineer is doing these kind of things, putting yourself out there, but realizing that it's a team sport. So for example, here we had 2 engineers and 2 accountants working together, which lent itself very well in Essential Solves in 2018, where we placed 2nd overall by putting solar panels and enabling communities of travelers to basically be microgrids amongst themselves. And here they liked a lot, so we won that. Or sorry, we came 2nd. We got the most innovative idea. And then we went on to ESB, where we actually won it overall. And as I mentioned, it was 8 hours we had. I had to pitch it. You do 2 rounds, and after doing it, we eventually had to pitch to high executives of ESB. So, for example, the head of operations and the head of people in organization, HR basically. And so we presented, and our idea was to turn the 2 peak stations which at the time were about to be decommissioned into burning cow manure. Funny enough, it worked out very beneficial for ESB to do it. One team member was a farmer, so he had a lot of inside data that we could use. But once you win this, your prize is you get to go to ESB for a summer, be an intern, and you also get to go to Canada, which is ENGCOM. ENGCOM is Engineering and Commerce Competition. It's a big international competition. ESB basically every year sponsors one Irish team to go across. For our year, it was us, and we got to compete. It's 2 6-hour cases and 1 12-hour case. And you're basically the exact same thing. You're given a problem, you have to solve it with these big international companies like General Electric, Bombardier, and Marvent. So we solve these problems. So for example, our first one was looking at soldiers and kind of how we can enable them to work with technology better. Our next one was a manufacturing problem for General Electric aviation on how to make power turbine blades. And the last one was on AI cars and transport for the future of air travel. And we did this as a team. 4 of us worked together the entire time, and we did very well. But the most important thing to recognize was it was a team sport. So as part of winning that, I got to become a summer student in ESB, which is basically a summer intern. And it was a wake-up call because in college you think everything's first principles and you come up with everything from scratch and you go into the corporate world and you realize that's not the case. It's very much so everything's nearly kind of half started. And it's hard to kind of wrap your head around not doing everything from scratch every time. But once you get that, you understand it. And that was part of planning and reports I'd written as a summer intern, where I got that experience of kind of this is how ESB runs, this is how the power sector in Ireland runs for, the vast majority of our power comes from an ESB plant or an ESB wind farm or generation station. And this is kind of something that you don't see every day. And it's something to kind of get your head wrapped around. But one big thing that really kind of set apart was when I finished, I went off and I got 14 job offers. And ESB was one of them that I got. Based on the salary, the workload that I had received on that summer internship, the benefits, and also on top of that, the training I knew I was going to get. I went for ESB, and when I went in, I entered the generation stream. I want to get a minute why the generation stream is such an important stream for Ireland and for ESB, really. So, as I mentioned, generation stream is basically looking at power plants and how to make electricity or store it. Transmission is a different one that we'll get to in a minute, but this is a typical gas power plant you'd find in Ireland. It's very complex and hard to understand, so you can boil it down into some very basic concepts that will get me shot if I said it in a conference call in ESB, but for now we can live with it. Basically, when we'll start in the middle with a gas turbine, which is a jet engine stuck to the ground. When you have a jet engine, it spins the electric generator, which is actually just basically a giant motor. And rather than spinning it, we're going to spin it ourselves with the gas turbine. So you create some heat from the back of that, which you can use to boil some water. Basically, you do that in a giant kettle. It's called a boiler, HRSG, heat recovery steam generator. This then goes into a steam turbine, which is basically just loads of fins on a fan that get pushed by the steam, which also drives the generator. This is, for the most part, how most of Ireland's electricity is made from fossil fuels. We also have the renewable side of things as well, which I'll be moving into later on. But if you wanted to turn it into a coal or peat station, you basically just replace the gas turbine with a burn pit or with a kind of a controlled burn area. There's many different ways to do this, and I couldn't even name half of them by now. So one of my first jobs in ESB was I was part of an innovation project, and it's classified what the innovation technology report was on. But all I can say is it's a new technology, and you're probably going to see it in the next 10 years or so. So moving from the innovation side of things, I went on to the maintenance teams. So for example, a power plant is very big and complex, and it's not really something you learn about in college. And you learn about the strict principles of it, but other than that, it's very difficult to kind of wrap your head around to see it. But for strict, kind of educational purposes, we'll say every single nut bolt and piece of dust is checked and to make sure it's up to scratch and up to specifications. And this covers everything from your planning and inspections, logistics and communications. Knowledge and experience is one thing as a new graduate starting your career that you're not going to have. That's one of the areas that ESB shines. They have lots of technical experts who are very patient with new people and are very willing to share their information. That's one thing that ESB really strives to kind of do. As people move up, they try to get them more into the educational roles and kind of filter that knowledge back down through the company into the new grads. And it's really something that shows because every grad new that goes in will have some area of small expertise that they've worked on a project and they know a lot about, and they can move into those roles later on if they wish. But that's something that you'll gain over time. But for the most part, when you're starting, it's something you don't really have, unfortunately. But the rest of the other four competencies you definitely do, and it's something that ESB definitely uses and gives you responsibility around. So, for example, I was just mentioning I worked in maintenance, so I worked in Dublin Bay Power, which is on the right hand. It's the bigger of the two red arrows. That was recently just went through his maintenance cycle. Now I'm going to walk down the road to Quilbeg with the iconic two towers, and we're going to do basically the exact same job. And we're going to maintain the plant and take it all apart and check it for any defects, non-destructive tests, and anything like that. Put it back together again, be up on the grid. And it's something that you don't realize maybe in your job day to day, but when you step back and think about it, you're touching and helping the lives of every single person in Ireland, whether it's a hospital or keeping a house warm. If there's power going to the grid, you're helping them, and you're keeping every light, every heating bill, everything up and running. So in terms of ESB with the mechanical engineering graduate path, it's 2.5 years, and you have two basic options. You don't really get to pick between them, but they are very good at putting you where you want to go. So normally the way it works is if you're a mechanical engineer, you're more likely on generation, but some do filter into the network side of things. So networks is mostly transmission, which is getting the power around the country, and substations, which is basically the same thing except moving up and down into different areas, different industries. And the generation side, which is what I'm on, there's generation engineering, which is the team I'm on. We're in charge of making and maintaining power plants. The customer solutions is like a consultancy service that ESB offers to some customers. And then the operations is basically running of power plants and running of different areas of ESB, like trading and stuff. So once you're doing 2.5 years, you become a professional engineer. You have to pass an exam. Strictly speaking, it's more like a Viva. It's not really a written exam or anything like that, but you do have to pass it. And ESB definitely has a good record with Engineers Ireland in terms of their accreditation process and getting PEs out into the industry. So once you finish your graduate program, as I mentioned, it's 2.5 years. You're going to be a professional engineer for the next 2 to 5 years, depending on what kind of area you want. And typically specialists are, kind of longer periods as professional engineers and kind of like asset managers or, kind of utility managers and stuff. They tend to have shorter, but they also tend to kind of move in different directions. So it's basically kind of which way you want to be. Do you want to be more technical? You be a specialist. You want to be more kind of people focused. You be a manager. And they're kind of the typical early stage career paths. And then there's millions of splinters, and you can hop between the roles if you want, and you can move all around the company. And the one story I always think about is the people and operations executive, Pat Nocton, is actually trained as a mechanical engineer himself, but he swapped over to HR, and that's the decision he made. And it was something interesting to find out about him, that the head of HR basically was an engineer as well. And a lot of ESB is full of engineers in the executive level. And it's because they take people in as grads and they train them all to up to be that. And they kind of live the ESB motto and the ESB way of life, of kind of safety first and having courage enough to stop a job if it needs to be. I just want to say thank you, and why not reach out if you want to. There's my LinkedIn or my email if you want to shoot me off anything.